Good evening again to everyone. The chair now will call to order the Culpeper County Planning Commission meeting for the month of July. And we welcome everyone here this evening. First order of business is approval of the agenda. There has been a request to have a work session added to our agenda for this evening. And the chair entertain a motion. Yes.
Recommend approval of the agenda with the addition of the work session following the normal meeting.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Okay, that has been approved. Approval of our minutes from our June 10th meeting. Chair entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and that's all we need to have it put to record. And before we go to our new business, I do want to take this time out. It's been brought to my attention that we are going to be a little bit thinner at our next meeting with the Morgan promoted, I should say, or moving on to bigger and better things and more challenging things, I think I would say. And I do want to just take the time from the commission. You have truly been an asset. Actually, I think I've been chairman since you've been here. And I watch you mature and grow, and I'm glad to see that the county is continuing to have you on board with us. You not only, and it's not because of the zero bars, I understand that, okay? All right, not because of that, but no, but the things that you would do, just like getting the cups of water for us today, all right? Making sure that, Denise told me how you got it. Okay. Thank God for the rain today, right? But we do want to just wish you the best in your future, endeavors here and your goals that you have for yourself. And without a doubt, I know that you're going to go far. And you've been a real asset to us. So wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now we move to our first item on the agenda, and that is our new business. Neil?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll introduce the case. Case Z 472-25-1 and CPA-3-26-1. We have All Site Contracting as the applicant, care of Richard Burgess, the owner. And they're requesting a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use map of the subject property from agricultural rural to commercial industrial, and then rezoning 20.438 acres partial of a 25.5 acre parcel from RA rural area to LI light industrial park district. The applicant is proposing to use the property for business related office use, storage of materials, storage, parking, and maintenance of equipment and vehicles per Article 7 or per Article 7-1A-2-2.4 contractors, equipment storage yard, lumber yards, building materials, and plumbing supply storage, all subject to screening and landscaping, and in accordance with the proffer statement submitted by the applicant dated August 18th, 2025. Property is located on Brandy Road, Route 762 in the Stevensburg Magisterial District. It's found on tax map 42B1, parcel 52. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Warren.
Good evening, everyone.
evening.
Neil covered the overview of this application for comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning of a portion of the property. I'll get into the specifics of how that all works out. This slide sort of just overviews what Neil very well put together. This is an aerial map of the site. So currently the property is, this is what the site would look like at realization of a comprehensive plan amendment, rezoning to light industrial and the subsequent subdivision of the site. The purpose of the subdivision is to avoid any potential split zoning of the parcel. Currently, there are two residential structures on the property on the east side of the property. The intent is to subdivide the property, creating three parcels, two being remaining residential and the remainder 20.438 acres to be zoned light industrial with the industrial designation on the future land use map. So in realization, the future land use map would show the subdivided parcel to be industrial. The surrounding area is mostly designated agricultural and rural, with a large portion along Brandy Road, or at the intersection of Brandy Road and Route 29 designated as commercial. The rezoning would see the property zoned light industrial, and again, similar to the future land use map, there are a number of zoning districts in the surrounding area, mostly rural area with agricultural and rural, agricultural zone property across Brandy Road and a industrial zone property to the west. I'll note that the property between the light industrial and the subject property is, while zone RA is the state police office. Taking a larger view of the area and sort of the corridor, if you will, of the interchange with 29 and Brandy Road, you can see a larger mix of uses in that area. I'll note that the urban service boundary follows this parcel where the cursor is, and the property lies outside of that property, outside of the urban service boundary. The goal of the urban service boundary is to locate higher uses where there are appropriate infrastructure in place, such as water and sewer and more developed roads. And I'll note that the nature of the proposed use for contractor storage yard and equipment and trucks by nature creates more trips on roads. And while this property lies outside of the urban service boundary, it does satisfy the goal that the comprehensive plan sets forth to locate more intensive uses away from agricultural and rural zoned land. The property here shows the proposed subdivision that would only take effect if the comprehensive plan and the rezoning are approved by the Board of Supervisors. That's proffer 7 in the draft proffers that the applicant has submitted. And this is a general concept plan of the site with a proposed office building at the front with gravel area for the storage of the site. There is an office proposed with it, conceptual stormwater facility at the very rear of the site. There's an existing conservation easement located to the west, and that is delineated by that red dotted line. And I'll note that there's no proposed development on that area of the property. A bit more detailed conceptual grading and stormwater management to provide for the grading of the gravel pad and the stormwater. A couple site photos. The house that you see behind the American flag is on the property and it would be subdivided. It's not exact, but the subdivision line would generally follow the fence line that goes into the property. And another site more central of the property, generally where that office building would sit, although conceptual. The applicant is present and has prepared a presentation if you would like to invite them forward for that.
Yes, I have one question for you.
Yes.
Seth.
Why do we need to change the comp plan? The comp plan is guidance, it's not an ordinance, so I'm not sure why we need to change the comp plan. And then specifically, what in the comp plan will change?
What specifically we would change in the comprehensive plan is the land use designation for the property after it is subdivided.
But it's just not that one property, is it?
It is the one. It is the parcel in purple here would be the only change to the comprehensive plan, specifically the change to the future land use map, to change the designation of that property to industrial. It's currently designated agricultural and rural.
Okay, as are the properties on either side of it right now, right?
Correct.
I guess I didn't think we were down to that level of detail where we're looking at individual sites in the comp plan.
And to get to your second question, the reasoning for a comprehensive plan amendment is that the property is proposed to be rezoned to something different from what the future land use map is showing. And part of the review for rezoning application is making sure that it complies with the comprehensive plan. And so the intent is to amend the comprehensive plan so that when the rezoning application is reviewed, it complies with comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, give your full name for the record, please.
Richard Archie Burgess IV.
What was it?
Richard Archie Burgess IV.
Okay, thank you. Kind of run that right on in there.
Yes, sir. So obviously, we're proposing rezoning that property there in Brandy Station. All Site Contracting is a small family-owned business of about 100 employees. Of those employees, I would say I'm related to 25% of them in some way. You know, brother-in-law, uncles, my brother, etc. We own several small businesses that kind of fall under All Sight's umbrella. So All Sight Stormwater, which does stream restoration, as well as stormwater BMPs, best management practice installations. Then we have Core Tough UHPC, which is ultra high performance concrete, which was a patent that we acquired from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And in order for us to get global exclusivity, we had to commercialize and industrialize that product. We've done that. That company is about 6 employees, and we are in 17 states and 2 countries. So that would be, this would be a home base for that portion of All Site Contracting. And we also own a R.A. Burgess Electrical, which my great-grandfather started in 1932, and it follows All Site Contracting as well. So it wouldn't just be All Site, it would be, our whole family kind of moving to this site. So my grandfather, that's actually me, my brother, and my sister, baling hay over an inlet just across from the property there in Brandy Station. The property on Cedar Grove Road, where we have a large wetland mitigation and preservation area, was purchased in 1961. The property there in Brandy Station that we're proposing to rezone was actually divided into 2 large pastures, and the lower pasture was flooded by the VDOT mitigation bank that went in behind the car lot, that area right along 29. So that shrunk our pasture almost in half. And when that happened, we chose to mitigate that stream, do a stream restoration, add stream bed, and preserve that into perpetuity. Also, that 7 acres that is between us and the state police. So the rezoning says 20 acres. 7 of it is already in a lifetime preservation, can never be built on. It's planted in native species, et cetera, and it's monitored and upkept as part of that mitigation bank. So now, in order to stay in agriculture, we've kept cattle on that property. And that cattle herd has gotten smaller and smaller over the years as that property has shrunk or its uses have shrunk. They're not allowed to graze the preserved areas, so that cost us 7 acres, et cetera. Now we force those cows up to the road And you can imagine having cattle on Brandy Road is nerve-wracking. You know, cows get out, they have a mind of their own. It is not a great use anymore for us. With the drought, with that liability, et cetera, we're down to just 5 cows there. They're more, you know, lawn ornaments than anything. Our kids like to feed them and do that. But that's all it is now. It's just a hobby, and we would rather utilize it for something for our family. On that gravel driveway, the stone house that they showed, my brother lives there with his wife and 3 kids. My grandparents and my parents live in the house behind them. In the house immediately to the right, I live with my wife and 3 kids. So it's really about bringing our place of work to where we live, the community that we live in, you know, providing jobs and a little bit of growth.
And you put that picture up there. Did you mean that you 3 in that picture loaded that truck, that hay?
Yes, sir.
Back there?
Yes, sir.
Was that legal back then?
It probably, it may not have been, but the man in the picture there didn't mind. Yeah, he worked us.
Okay. No, just-
Actually, Dwayne Payne, representative,
Yeah.
when I called him and spoke to him about this, just kind of in passing, he actually baled hay with my grandfather on the property there in Brandy Station, 20 years ago.
No, thanks. Yes, sir.
The adjacent properties around us, I know it shows a lot of rural agriculture there, but within half a mile, all of these commercial uses exist around us. The state police, it's not just the state police station, they have a target range back there. They shoot nonstop, so noise is not a concern. At the front of the property is Alpha Kennels. That's a grandfathered kennel there. That's those first 3 houses or those first 3 lots that you see. And actually, once you get beyond that, it butts up to the preservation. So those additional homes down the end would not actually touch the industrial portion. They're up against that preserved area. And then up the road, you have Ross and Trolio, you have Goodyear, the Iglesias Church. I'm not sure what they are colored on that map, but they're commercial uses. And that's within a half mile either direction of our driveway. I went through the sister companies and the composition of All Site Contracting and the family in the business. Part of that is Panoptic Preservations. They are the company that controls the mitigation banks at both properties, the one on Cedar Grove Road and the one here at Brandy. They would also have an office in this new location.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we'll ask some questions maybe for you. Thank you very much. Okay. Chair now opens the public hearing. If there's anyone here who would like to speak on this application, please raise your hand. Be recognized by the chair. Anyone? Okay. Declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners? Seems like this is a right fit right now with all this down there. I think it kind of fits right in and being done the right way. So I think this is kind of the first time I've had to experience this since I've been here. But any questions anyone have at this time? If not, the chair, anything else?
I just had a question for,
Go right ahead.
for Chris.
Your
The,
microphone.
The police, it's zoned RA?
Yes.
Okay. And same thing for Alpha?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I think I was just curious back to Ray's question, I believe, whether or not it makes sense if you're gonna change the comp plan, whether you would change it to be consistent with that area or not more than just this site. So, just a thought.
Yes, Mr. Aguilar?
Yeah, I kind of am torn a little bit on it because, I think it's a great idea, and I feel honored that a company wants to come here and set up a base operations here. It's just looking at, if we're going to do this work session later with a comp amendment on a different kind of industrial use, and in that amendment, it states the goals of the county, going forward and trying to steer those industrial uses away from rural areas, and kind of concentrate them towards areas that are already developed and stuff. And so that's why, in my mind, it kind of contradicts that, we go and we vote for this, but then the next work session, we're voting to keep industrial uses away from ag land. So it kind of, it kind of confuses me in a sense of that way. And so I don't know. I don't know if, if there's a special exemption, because I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to bring economic development to the county. But at the same time, we are in a rural area. We have a plan for a reason. Those guidelines are set up to kind of keep a buffer between the county, the industrial uses and agricultural land. So I think that's just something we should probably keep in mind, when we do this. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Couple questions. You talk about a storage area. You're going to use this, there's going to be storage area out here, right?
Go ahead.
And also for parking vehicles. I guess my first question is, what kind of vehicles? Are we talking tractor trailers? Are we talking, I'm not sure what.
So we have a little bit of everything. The majority of our equipment reports directly to the job site that it's working on. As far as loaders, excavators, et cetera. They do come back to the shop to be worked on from time to time. We own one full-size road tractor with a lowboy trailer that transports, from job to job. For the most part, it does get housed at the office location. And then I believe we have 3 dump trucks, that are full-size triaxles. And then everything else is mostly pickups and small crew trucks from there.
In terms of tractor trailers, I'm hearing like 1 or 2.
Yes, sir. Maybe 5 tops.
Okay. Okay.
When you consider we've got a flush truck, we've got the 3 dump trucks, and then the road tractor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess my comment on that is, when we allowed outdoor storage before, I think one of the things we also asked for is that no maintenance is performed outside. These vehicles are operational.
Yes.
So if that's something we could add as a condition, is that?
So can you elaborate on that for me?
Well, the vehicles, first of all, the vehicles that you park out there are operational.
Yes.
And if there's maintenance that has to be done on those vehicles, it's pulled into a garage or something. The
Yes,
maintenance is not
that's
done
that
on the,
proposed
on
area
the,
there.
okay,
Yes.
okay,
That's what he's asking.
yeah.
Understood.
And
Yeah.
to add to that, is that garage big enough to get excavators and dozers in there, or is that going to be done outside?
So proposed, it shows 7,200 square feet. We want it to be deep enough that we can pull a tractor trailer
And
all the way
tall
through.
enough.
And tall enough that you can lay the boom out on an excavator. That is part of our design.
So no maintenance and, what's the other thing I asked? What was the other thing I said? It was no maintenance outside. Oh, and the vehicles are operational.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's
Obviously,
see.
it's a construction company. Things break down, but we do have a
Right.
fleet of mechanics to work on those.
But there are no vehicles that are gonna be like cherry pickers or something like that, are gonna be high.
Correct.
Okay, okay. Let's see, number 2. You had a traffic study done, and it talked about 66 trucks, or not, 66 trips per day additional.
Yes, sir.
Again, are these 66 trucks a day, or are these,
No, that's mostly office personnel.
okay. so
That
that's-
road tractor, on a normal day, it leaves, goes to a job, and then it's moving job to job throughout the day, comes back at the end of the day.
Okay.
Same with the dump trucks. They go to a site, they work on that site, they come home. So it's very limited truck traffic.
Okay.
And typically before and after your rush hour times, because they have to get to the site by the time work starts, and they're not coming back until after work's done.
Let's see. You talked about creating new jobs. You said you have 100 employees, about 100 employees right now?
Yes, sir.
Could you give us an example of what type of jobs they might be and possible numbers?
So as far as numbers, I can't speculate. That's going to be determined by growth in the area. If Culpeper continues to grow and we do more work here, we're currently on site on the Shea property behind Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay,
We get the contract for the Ryan site over here off of Route 3, digging basements, doing those things. That's going to be additional work, more reason for us to put more people here. So it's going to depend on growth.
okay. In your proffer, you proffered that no data centers will be permitted.
Yes, sir.
I always wonder if it's worthwhile adding that no battery electric storage be allowed on this property either.
As far as solar,
battery electric storage systems. Houses full of batteries.
Understood.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
could we add that to the proffer?
Absolutely fine with
Okay.
us.
And I don't know if the rest of the group here agrees with that or not.
Didn't we just say that we wanted it, that's where we want it?
Well,
Yeah,
it
that's-
said it
that's
was
why-
allowed on L1. But since, if we can say no data centers, it seems to me we can say no BES.
You're asking to proffer it out of this particular
Yeah.
site?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we're fine with that on our end.
Is that a problem?
No, if the applicant is willing to add it.
Okay. And again,
Okay.
I'll,
That does not apply to the batteries we store on
No,
site
No, no, no,
for our
no,
trucks
no.
and things, okay.
No. Solar projects. and
Yeah.
things like that.
That was what I thought. Just wanted to
And,
clarify.
my last question is, the times here. It talks about heavy equipment will not be operated between the hours of 11 PM and 5 AM daily.
Yes, sir.
That's awfully late and awfully early, it seems to me, to have vehicles bouncing around. Why is it they seem like really extreme hours?
So our norm is 6 AM. The guys get in, they're out of the yard by 6:30. And then we have guys who travel as far as West Virginia and return to the shop. So that was why we put the 11 PM time clock on there, because that gives us some grace, especially,
Are they driving cars or are they driving trucks?
mostly it's pickup trucks or, Ford Rangers, F-150, F-250. That's our standard crew truck. We do have 3 or 4 mini dump trucks. They're it's a regular pickup with a dump bed on it.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm wondering if we could modify that. Right now it says trucks and other heavy equipment will not be operated between the hours of 11 and 5. If we were talking about heavy equipment, it sounds to me like we could move that to 6 AM or 6:30. Would that be okay?
So depends on how strict that is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's jobs where he's working north of DC and, Baltimore. He's gonna have to get there earlier to load his equipment.
I don't
and
think we,
Head to work.
I would like to not see us put that restriction there. I think, especially if we move it into that zoning
Yeah.
that we're saying, then, putting those stipulations on them, and that's the kind of business they have. We don't know what might happen, in that. I like the other that you have.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that right there, I wouldn't want to put that restriction on.
Okay, I'll concur with that.
Okay, good.
Let's
Good,
see.
thanks.
And what about working on Sundays?
Very, very rare. Emergency cases, you might have some folks go in, especially after a storm or something like that, to grab
Okay.
materials.
So you don't, this facility wouldn't normally have traffic on a Sunday?
No, our office will not be operational on Sundays.
Okay.
It would just be emergency work.
That's it.
Good,
Thank you.
good, thank you. Anyone else?
I had a question for Chris.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to clarify a couple things. One is that currently it's zoned RA, correct? And the intent is to zone it to LI.
Correct.
And in terms of the comp plan, the urban boundary does not cover this site. Is that correct?
That's correct. The urban growth boundary stops along this parcel on the boundary of 29.
So-
The property's half a mile east of, I'm sorry, 1 mile east of the boundary.
So I understand in terms of the comp plan, the goal that we have to make a decision on is whether or not it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Not necessarily just the land use map. Land use map is one item in the comp plan, and so this is zoned RA, but it doesn't mean that it's not in general conformance with the comp plan or other sections of the comp plan. I guess getting back to answering your question. But it is outside the urban boundary. So just for clarification on staff findings in terms of, I think the thought is that because the existing surrounded area is fairly developed, and that the Culpeper County does not want to just have random sprawl where we have light industrial in an area that isn't developed, this would be a suitable area for it because some of the other to the left and to the right are fairly already developed. Is that the case?
That's correct. It's a little nuanced in that you're correct. We're looking at the entire comprehensive plan, not necessarily just the future land use designation. So you have a goal in the comprehensive plan, in the land use chapter, to limit, locate intensive development from agricultural and rural zoned land. And while the property is zoned rural, the nature of the site, and while the sort of corridor, if you will, of the site is not within the urban growth boundary, the uses along that site have sort of, and some of the zoning has changed the area to be more, have more intensive uses. And so if you're thinking of it in the context of locating it on this site as opposed to rural area, further away
general
from,
agricultural land.
yeah, right,
This was
further
the
away
site.
from 29, further away from town. Locating it here would have less of an impact on agricultural and rural zone land. Theoretically, those trucks are going to be making their way to 29 anyway. They're traveling half a mile on this site rather than other sites where they might have to travel on more agricultural and rural zone land.
I think that was, I was just clarifying
Yeah.
that because that's how I understood it. But one question I had for the applicant, can you go to the grading plan or pull up the grading plan? So there's not going to be any impact of grading over toward the conservation easement area. That's going to stay undisturbed, correct?
Correct. We have to protect that at all costs. If we damage it, we're liable. We own it and we're responsible for the stewardship of that property into perpetuity.
Are there any wetlands or aquatic plant material, anything on the site
So-
that needs to be mitigated?
On this site, no, that is strictly a preservation area. Directly behind this site is a VDOT mitigation that was installed 15 to 20 years ago. And it flows into our mitigation bank. So obviously we have to protect that at all costs as well. Anything that runs into there is gonna run into our mitigation bank.
So the pond would treat the impervious area and the gravel area as well?
Yes.
DEQ now treats that as paved areas.
Yeah,
Thank
and we have floated the idea of permeable pavers as, you know, they're a class 1 treatment facility in themselves around the building. Obviously, we wouldn't want that back where the large trucks and equipment are. But that's part of what we do is stormwater management. So we believe we can significantly protect the endangered areas around us.
It just depends on the cost for maintenance, so the permanent pavers aren't cheap, you know, and then you also gotta look at what kind of ground conditions, what kind of soil characteristics.
Strength
Did you
rail,
do
that-
monitoring, you know?
Yes, sir. It's what we
all
do.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's part of our business model.
Plays a role.
Okay. You thought about screening?
Yes,
What's your
sir.
plan?
I believe there's a proposed 30-foot buffer all the way around.
And what you,
Doing the buffer along our properties, probably not a big deal, but along the road and along Mr. Gale's property there at Alpha Kennels, we would absolutely provide screening and fencing.
okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Have you had a chance to see if there's any other light industrial properties in Culpeper that would work?
We haven't. Part of what makes this, you know, financially possible is that we already own the land.
I appreciate the history of your family. I'm in that same situation, so.
Thank you.
One of my concerns, I guess, is the comp plan, the current zoning, and even the urban service boundary and the future growth areas do not allow for this. So we do have to make all these exceptions and rezonings in order to make it happen. In order to treat, you know, all property owners and citizens within the county fairly, personally, I think rezonings have to be done very carefully. And,
Understood.
And spot zonings and just making exceptions to the rules and the guidelines that we have in place has to be done very carefully. You can set a precedent. Why would you not do this for another neighbor, or why would you not do this for another property in kind of the same situation? And sometimes you can open a Pandora's box, which all of a sudden now you have to deal with a whole other bunch of issues you've created by allowing it to happen
Understood.
in this situation. So that is a concern. In honoring, respecting the neighbors, if a neighbor bought a property in your area, knowing what the zoning was at the time when they bought it, and now we change it, that does affect the other neighbors. Although they may not, right now, it's a general concept as far as.
Understood, and that's where I think this is a unique scenario. So you can see Richard A. Burgess III, trustee, owns those 3 bordering lots on the whole east side of the property. Then here where it shows Jason Gale, that is a commercial kennel. They have a monstrous, facility out back with lights and the whole bit. And then I think to consider the state police, rural agriculture is a little disingenuous in itself.
Oh, I agree.
There.
I live real close to there, so I know the area very well.
You know what the shooting's like and all that. So I do think this is a very special case. And the portion that we're trying to rezone is no longer agriculture use. We're not dropping this into the middle of, beautiful farmland. We've kept cows there just to keep it ag.
Right.
And we've gotten to a point where the liability is not worth it.
And I don't want to disagree with anything you said. However, how many times can the argument be used in other places if we go along with a precedent to do it here?
Right.
I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other properties, ag, RA or ag right now, that the same argument could be made. So I just think we have to be very careful when we look to approve these things. And plus, a governing body such as in Culpeper, there's a manner of trust that we have to keep with the
Yes.
citizens of Culpeper. And some of that, sometimes that gets broken, it makes the whole system and process start to be
Understood.
difficult. And then, so I'm very careful with rezonings and special uses for that reason. I would say it's important that we honor and uphold the current zoning and the comprehensive plan and the urban service and future growth boundaries, unless there is a real compelling and substantial benefit to the health, safety, and welfare of all residents of Culpeper County. Then I think rezonings and special uses make sense. But when it benefits, no offense, but only one member
Right.
of the county and not the health, safety, and welfare of all members of the county, I think we have to be very careful with how we go about approaching that. If the argument can be successfully made that it benefits the citizens of Culpeper in a way that's substantive, I could see a rezoning or special use permits in many cases, but I don't quite see that here. I appreciate the benefit it has to you. Are there other sites that could work? I know it would cost more money potentially for that, but we might, honor the integrity of what we have in place. And maybe in the next comp plan, we'd sit down and say, hey, this whole area should be light industrial, and then maintain the integrity of what we put in place. That's just a concern. And we deal with that all the time. It's something we have to, what are we communicating to other citizens out there when we do this? What precedent are we setting? And now we're gonna have to
Understood.
deal with this later in another
And
way.
correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't that the purpose of the fee and the comprehensive amendment plan change that we submitted? Was to do exactly what he's
Well, yes, but we'd have to
requesting?
change it to do that. So it's not there
And
right
what,
now. So-
and what we're doing, with the entire situation, understand exactly, where you're coming from. The years that I've been here, we never wanted to be in this position where we were spot zoning. And I've always been against it, but this particular situation, the place where it is fitting for that place, everything around it. The land itself, if I'm right, I think that's, Shrinksville, isn't it?
What's that?
That,
Shrinks well?
yeah, I think that land, bless you. I think that land there is that, and I from a residential standpoint, I remember that area, very well too. But wasn't it a truck shop there years ago on there? The Cis trucking and all was down in there. I remember all of that and the kennel and all that was down there.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, understand, what you're saying, but I don't think we, have to, be fearful at this time about it being, a spot zoning type of situation, because everything around it is more fitting into what, the applicant is asking for, so. But anyway, were you finished?
Well, I think that argument.
Excuse me, I didn't.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think that argument can be made by probably a number of applicants, has in the past and in the future. And I just.
But
think
they
we
would have to do the same thing that he's doing.
Correct.
Yeah,
I
but they
agree.
haven't come to us, and it might be a fitting situation also. So, but that's not a decision we have to make. But as the applicant comes to us, if we find it fitting, in in the area that is being asked for, and with the state police and the gun range and the kennel and all the Ross and Trolleos, and then the buildings that they have. There used to be the lumber yard, and that's more fitting. And I think the only reason residential was there is some of the previous owners that I knew that had the trucking company. They also had a few homes brought
Yes.
in. There, I remember all of that area there. But I mean,
But what
it's
we're look-
case by case. It's a unique situation. When that opportunity comes and it's someone else, then we do have to weigh, those things, one against the other. And this is fitting, where it is. It's residential's there.
Have you driven down there and spent time over in that area? You probably have.
Oh,
it
yeah,
pretty well.
yeah.
So, although I can see that, I think we're making a change to the comp plan. We're
Oh, yeah.
redoing the zoning
Yeah.
for a special situation for an individual owner. It's not benefiting the citizens, the health and welfare of the citizens of Culpeper County. And that's really what we're supposed to be deciding.
Yes.
Not whether we think it fits. It's a nice idea.
But when it comes to the welfare and things like that too, it's a lot of different reasonings that you can put behind the situation that
And
we're
I haven't
dealing
heard
with,
them yet.
okay? And
Enough.
just the business that they are bringing, and the type of business that they're bringing, there are some benefits, to us also. But we understand that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I agree.
We can bring it out. So okay, go ahead.
I'm still confused why we have to look at the comp plan at all. The comp plan is brought general guidance for us that says this is kind of what we think is gonna happen out there. But when we look at individual activities, there can always be exceptions to that plan, which I think is what we have here. And I think we have a case where it's a good reason to have an exception. So I don't know why we wanna change an individual site on the comp plan in this particular case.
Would be very much, the reason would be very much what Mr. Wilkes is saying too, so that it doesn't seem also like we're spot zoning or doing what we're doing. It's to be documented as to this is why, and we didn't just do it. So, I mean, staff, is there anything else that you want to add?
I mean, we just talked about these other activities that are out there that could be considered light industrial, but we didn't change the comp plan when those were allowed in. So
Right. To think about it, if we weren't to amend the comprehensive plan, the property is currently designated as agricultural and rural in the comprehensive plan. If you were to rezone the property to an industrial use, you're permitting an industrial use on land that is designated as agricultural and rural, which is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan's vision for the land.
That's
Okay.
true, but the comprehensive plan is not an ordinance. The comprehensive plan is guidance.
Guiding the zoning ordinance, correct?
Yes. So I don't, I think it's a good, I think it's an
Yeah.
appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't know why we have to look at the comp plan at all.
So the comp plan has a future land use map, as you know, that designates properties by different land uses. And right now, the land use for this property is rural agricultural.
Right.
In the state code, it says if you're going to rezone a property, it needs to be found in conformance with the comp plan as you're
Oh.
doing it.
Okay. There you go.
So that is the reason for bringing forward the future land use map as part of the comp plan amendment
I see.
before, and then you make that you make that decision before, in your motion, before you move on to your motion for a rezoning.
My memory is not what it used to be, but I can never remember having a comp plan change when we allowed a rezoning.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember that happening. Am I wrong?
But this is,
I can't speak to what happened
Yeah.
before, but
Okay.
I have the state code up in front of me.
Okay, I mean, if that's what we have to, yeah, there we go.
Ma-
Lawyers will tell us.
Dr. Harris, it is best practice and it is by state code, they go together. So you would.
so it's the best practice. And it's, it would be something that we're doing maybe for the first, second week,
Yeah,
because
I think
now.
it is.
pardon?
in the
I mean,
same-
typically if something's zoned, let's just say it's residential.
Yeah.
And in the comp plan, it might say this area zone residential could be anywhere from 1 to 10 dwelling units per acre. So you could do R1, you could do R2, you could do R3, such and such. Doesn't mean you can do industrial. So if you want to do industrial, you have to change the comp plan to allow industrial use before you rezone it, because currently it's not allowed.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay,
Gotcha.
but
So
But we did it like on the data center out on Route 3, because that was not zoned
Right, that was
industrial.
agriculture.
That was agriculture,
Yeah.
so you had to do a comp plan amendment to change that to then allow it to occur.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
I just don't ever remember
Yeah.
having a comp.
That
plan
was one
change.
area, that was one place we did it. yeah.
So, and last week, or last time we met, we had a BESS wanting to be, somebody was arguing to put it in a place which made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense to put it there, but we decided that we weren't gonna put it on ag land and change the zoning and the description of it, because for the reasons, I think we shouldn't do this. Same, I mean, it's the same thing. So we're changing something fairly dramatically to accommodate, which I appreciate what he wants to do. But to accommodate him, and we didn't accommodate the gentleman last time. So I think we're being inconsistent. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned
Okay.
about what we're setting
All right.
forth as far as a precedent in
Okay.
such a.
And go ahead.
I would
Saying,
just say
I
one,
don't-
Wait.
I don't think,
And
I
we'll
don't
get
think
ready to
we're being
close it out.
inconsistent. I
Yeah.
think we're looking at, again, in my mind, the comp plan is a plan and it's guidance.
Yes.
So you try to follow that as much as you can, but there are exceptions to that
Exactly.
guidance along the way.
Yes.
And I see this as an exception to that guidance. But what I don't see is why we should change the comp plan
Right.
to go along with the exception.
Other than the states.
Yeah, and if that's what we have to do, then that's
State
fine.
it would be standard policy.
Perhaps this might help. The future land use map is one component of the comp plan. So to your point, the comp plan has guidance related to a number of different topical areas, whether it's the agricultural uses, economic development uses, housing, transportation. So you may find that this proposal, based on the surrounding uses, meets the comp plan goals from an economic development standpoint. But in order for it to meet the future land use map, which has it designated as an agricultural use, that's the part that needs to be
Yes.
changed.
Okay.
You can have a seat.
I can see.
Thanks. Okay. But but you had a very good point, and this is a unique situation that we're in. We don't have these situations that often. But we do have it here, and as we always do, we discuss it, and then we vote on it, and then we move forward. Okay?
I'll say one thing.
Go right ahead.
Anything else? I think if the adjacent properties were zoned agricultural and they were farming those properties or
It'd be
something
like spot
that, then I would agree with you.
Yes.
But but not the directly adjacent properties.
There is residential right next
Well, there's residential.
No one's farming around us on either side of us.
Right,
Until
not
you
farming.
get
So you have to look at, how I'm looking at it, I'm just saying, I'm not.
Yes.
Is how I'm looking at it is, what do we really want that whole area to be?
Well, I agree with that.
Do we want it to be agricultural at that corridor there, or do we want to allow future growth there?
Right.
And so if we want to allow future growth there, then you need to change the comp plan. If we
Okay.
don't, and if they intended use there is agricultural, then you leave it. So it just comes in.
Okay.
So,
In my mind, that decision was made the last time we went over the comp plan. We put it in place,
Mhm.
and so now we're going to in this one situation, make a change to it, which I
That's right.
think I'd be very, very careful with.
Okay,
Don't disagree with that.
all right. Okay, we thank everyone for all the comments, and that's what we do, and that's the purpose we're here. Exactly, so, at this time, if there's no other discussion, the chair entertain a motion.
There we go. I'd like to make a motion in case Z 47225-1, CPA 3-26-1. Recommend approval of the comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use mass of the property from agriculture, rural to commercial, industrial, and rezoning of 20.43 acres partial of a 25.5 acre parcel from RA to LI. With the additional conditions. One of them being that the land will never be used, cannot be used for battery electric storage systems. All vehicles located in outdoor storage will be operational, and that no maintenance will be conducted in the outdoor storage area. No vehicle maintenance.
Unless something were not to fit, and it's still construction, so you could have a bent boom or something that doesn't fit in the garage.
Okay.
I just don't wanna
But
say,
you,
yeah.
we got our motion, you don't have to,
Okay.
comment
Okay.
on that, you got the motion,
I think that was it.
and because we understand there are gonna be, exceptions to the rule, but, but there's no permanent situation where maintenance being done outside of the buildings. and that's no
Mr.
purpose.
Chairman,
Yes.
one change to the motion is we don't put conditions on rezonings. It would be a request that the applicant amend their proffers.
Okay,
Okay.
Yes, sir,
You agree to so amend the proffers?
we do.
and, one other thing, and with the staff, in this motion, do we have to, in reference to the screening, do we have to have anything there for that at all? Don't have to worry about it. That'll come later anyway when we have it, so, okay. Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay. We will, send this forward with a recommendation of approval. Okay? All right. This now closes our regular business session. We, now move into our work session. Anyone who